Hey you guys, coming to you from my dining room table. I want to make another video about mental health and why I don't want to date anyone with mental health issues, even though I have a lot of compassion for people who are struggling with that because I realize they're in a lot of pain. The problem when you get into a relationship with someone like that is they they um they pour their pain into everyone they touch. And so I don't think they should be in relationships at all because they ruin everybody's life. I know this sounds really mean, but they actually do get into relationships with other wounded people. People who are emotionally healthy will get into relationships with other people who are emotionally healthy. And since I feel emotionally healthy, and I'm not a caretaker, I'm not a fixer, I'm not a rescuer, I'm not a codependent, I'm not a victim, I'm not a, what is the other one? The perpetrator. I look for people who are emotionally healthy. But people who have mental health issues, they get into relationships all the time. All the time. I see it. That's why I don't want it. I've never gotten into a relationship with someone who was emotionally unhealthy, but I have seen people who have and see how miserable their lives become because these relationships with someone who's depressed, bipolar, schizophrenic, has social anxiety, uh, um, borderline personality disorder, narcissism, would ruin your life. I was married to someone who was emotionally walled off, and it caused me a lot of pain. So, and that's not even anything like what some of these people will do. So that's my number one. Number two, uh, I had a coaching business. I actually tried to help a lot of these people. I had reached out on all my social media, which was like 20,000 people, multiple times, offering free coaching for anyone struggling with any kind of emotional pain. Because I do this like somatic experiencing technique. And in all the times I did it, a lot of times I had zero takers, zero. Sometimes I would have one or two. The truth of it is, a lot of these people don't want help. They don't want to change. A lot of people don't want to change. We change when we are in a lot of pain, me included. So I'm not blaming them. I'm just saying it's not like they all want change, believe me. And right now, I am kind of privy to two couples I kind of peripherally know that are where one person is struggling with mental health issues. And in one case, the person went to some kind of therapist that just let them complain. And in the other case, the person was just trying to take medication, but the depression hasn't gone away through all the years of trying different medication, and none of them have gone to effective therapy. And they ended up with people who were just kind of caretakers or whatever. And both these relationships are now ending. And unfortunately, there are children involved. So, what I found is that a lot of people don't care. They don't want the help, even when it's offered. Now, I am a compassionate person. I answer all my emails and I help people when they need help. So, I'm not a cold person. Um, so, that's neither here or there. But I'm just saying, well, and then I was on Facebook, and there was a lady who kept talking about feeling suicidal or whatever. So I was reaching out to her, offering to help her, and she got mad at me. She said, I want to be witnessed in my pain. So the idea that we should be around these people who are choosing to stay sick and don't want help is kind of preposterous. I was working with my therapist on feeling responsible for people who are poor. Because I mean, I'm not rich, but I'm not poor. I do okay. And I have a constant kind of guilt about it because I feel bad for the people really struggling and suffering. So my therapist and I worked on where that came from, and I'm going to relate this to the thing with the people with mental health issues. I got to see that I'm allowed to be happy. I am not responsible for other people. I'm not responsible for other people. I can care about others without taking responsibility for them. I made my own. She had me write down she sent me like an email afterwards with all the beliefs and affirmations. And another one that I wrote was that I'm not responsible for lonely men, angry men, sexless men, depressed men, anxious men, broke men, victim men. I'm not responsible for any of that. And there's a lady in the comments who's trying to make me responsible, but I'm not biting. But here's just another video about the mentally ill. Now, I want to read a comment from Scott Bridge, and I don't know if that's his real name, but I like what he said in the comment. He said that there's a movie called Beautiful Mind, where Jennifer Connelly's husband descends into schizophrenia. She faces the countless difficult challenges that come with coping with a seriously mentally ill spouse. Oh, and I have another friend who had to divorce her husband who is schizophrenic. Oh my God, it's caused her nothing but nightmares. The guy should have never been allowed to marry. Never. Never. And they have a child together. Now, as he goes on, also you and everyone else are not qualified to act as a therapist for a mentally ill or substance abuse person. It takes very special knowledge and skills to be a therapist, something very few people have. So we're not qualified. I'm not qualified to be a therapist. I've done some coaching around emotions, but I'm not qualified to be someone's therapist. And certainly in a relationship, we're not supposed to be each other's therapists or each other's parents. We're supposed to have consensual, mutually valuable relationships. And I can tell you, people don't want to be changed. Like, if you were to get into a relationship with someone out of pity, and pity isn't love, or you want to fix them because you're a fixer, you're going to end up miserable and you can't fix them anyway. They'll just get pissed off at you. What are you going to do with this mentally ill person or this depressed person? You can't change them. Like the other lady said in the comments, doesn't like my viewpoint, she said, these people need love. Well, you got to love yourself first. And now what I want to get to is they do need love and they do need therapy, which is the other point Scott makes, and I agree, is that it's very difficult to find therapy. But again, these people don't want therapy. The majority of people who have depression or anxiety don't want therapy. They want to take a pill. They don't really want to fix it. And you got to know the reason people have depression and anxiety is because of what happened to them in their childhood. You can give them a pill to numb their emotional responses or give them more energy, but it's not going to change the dynamics of how they view themselves, how they view the world, how they show up. It doesn't change anything. It's not the answer. They don't want therapy. So don't come here giving me your baggage. I don't want it. Now, let's talk about the problem with therapy in this country. If we lived in a country where all these people wanted therapy, I would have a lot of compassion, but they don't. But there is a shortage of therapists. Now, mental health care in this country is very messed up. It very much is. It very much is, yes. A big problem is it's so damn expensive. Most people don't have the money or income to pay for therapy, and most therapists don't participate with health insurance carriers and are not covered by them. By the way, I have a good friend. One of my best friends is a mental health therapist, and her struggles with the insurance company and the dozens of hours a week she spends on the phone with them is just mind-boggling, to where I'm like, why don't you start just taking cash patients only clients? It's really a mess. The insurance business, they want to pay out as little as possible. Anyway, also there aren't enough therapists to treat everyone who needs it. There are 250 million adults in the US and 200,000 therapists, meaning one therapist for every 1,200 people. Therapists are overworked and overburdened as it is. Yeah, I have someone I know who was trying to go to therapy, and it was under Medicare or Medi-Cal or something. And these therapists are bombarded hour after hour after hour all day long with people's problems. I think they get like $30 an hour. And finally, it was her turn with her husband, I believe, to go into therapy, and the therapist quit that morning. It's very hard to get in. It's very hard to get an appointment. When I was going through my divorce at Kaiser, they would only see me once every 6 weeks because I wasn't depressed or suicidal, and I was in a lot of emotional pain. It was very hard to get an appointment. A lot of therapists, there aren't enough, and it's expensive. It's like $250 an hour. If you don't have that, I know that people can find cheaper options working with like a student or something. But again, like I said, when I offered free coaching, people didn't want it. They just got mad at me. Another problem is a lot of people are not amenable to therapy or drugs. They have no desire to improve or change. Exactly what I talked about before. With abusive men, they not only have no desire to change, they're masterfully skilled in fooling and manipulating the therapists who try to treat them. Yes, narcissistic men, entitled men, and even entitled women. Entitled women are apparently the worst to treat. They run games on the therapist, and if you're not a good therapist, they can run roughshod all over you. Now, I will say, even when it comes to addiction treatment like that, I made a video yesterday talking about Jessica Kent and her husband having relapsed. She's never known him in active addiction, and he called to the VA. He was an Army Ranger, PTSD from the war in Iraq, I believe. So now he's got his addiction, he's got his PTSD, so he calls the VA. They get the run around. Finally, a lady at the VA tells Jessica, you got to take him to the emergency room. That's where he'll get in. Otherwise, you have to wait for months to get into a treatment center. So I don't remember what happened from there, but I think they still couldn't get in right away. After my divorce, when I was meeting all these guys online, I ended up meeting this young man who I didn't know was an alcoholic, because we went to this. I had a friend who was doing like a reading of her book, and it was near where he was staying at this hostel, so I picked him up. And he seemed like a fine young man, so we went to this reading, and on the way back he wanted to get a beer, which I didn't think anything of it. I took him back to spend the night. He seemed like fun and everything. He was very passionate in bed, I have to say, which surprised me because it turned out he was an alcoholic. He was in his mid-20s, good-looking young guy. And, well, what happened, the morning when he woke up, he asked me for wine, which I thought was weird. I mean, I like wine too, but not in the morning. He drank the whole bottle of wine. Not only was I surprised about it, but I'm like, you're drinking all my wine. Like, that's expensive wine. Like, you're not even paying for this. Like, I wasn't very happy with it. And then he wanted more wine. And then he told me he was an alcoholic. And now here I am. Now, I'm just fresh out of this marriage. And I'm kind of, like, compassionate with people. And what was I going to do with him? I wasn't going to turn him on the street. So he told me he wanted help. He wanted to get help. He'd been an alcoholic for too long. So I called a couple rehab centers. Okay, this was my own experience. This was in 2013, 14, something like that. And they all had a waiting list of like many, many months, a waiting list. I'm like, this guy needs to detox right now. He wants treatment now. Why are you going to make an addict wait? When they're in the mood to get treatment, that's what Jessica said too on her video the other day. You can't just make people wait. They may not want it anymore tomorrow. Then one of my friends told me the same thing that they had told Jessica, which was, you've got to go to the emergency room because they will treat him there and they will detox him there. So we did that. And do you know that people can actually die from alcohol withdrawal? And one of my kids' friends actually did die at the age of 21 from alcohol withdrawal. This was a guy that was already going to graduate school. Like, he wasn't but he was drinking so much. He was already coughing up blood in his early 20s, and he died from the alcohol withdrawal. The hospital sent him home, and they go into seizure. Anyway, so with this young man, I already knew that people can go into that. I took him to the emergency room, and then after they gave him some things to help him, some medication to help him with the detox. I don't think that he didn't get into rehab. There were no spaces. I took him back to the hostel, but you know what the guy did? He stole something from me. He stole one of my laptops. So I called him up. I'm like, I'm coming back to get that laptop. And he gave it back to me. But after all that I did for him, and he pulled that shitty move, that was pretty sketchy. But, you know, he was basically a homeless alcoholic. And I didn't know. Never been around an alcoholic before. That was my first alcoholic that I saw. He hid it pretty well, and they can hide it very well. The point I'm trying to make is that there are people who want help, especially people who are in addiction. When I was on Vicodin, I so many times wanted to stop, but I didn't know where to go for like a detox experience off my Vicodin. So we definitely need more rehab places for people who are addicted to substances, because when they do want help, they have to wait a really long time. But that's the state of mental health care in this country. So people are struggling with mental health issues. You know, there's so much. I watch so many YouTube videos that I just find fascinating about codependency, fawning, anxiety, depression, just because I find it very interesting. And that's what anybody can do. If you can't see a therapist, you can definitely do some of your own reading like that. You can definitely start doing things that will help you with your mood. What will help you with your mood is to get enough sleep, move your body, and get exercise. That is a huge mood lifter. Reframe your story. If you're afraid of people, just realize that was just something. Then you can change your behaviors. See, a lot of these people really need some deep therapy, because at the root of a lot of this stuff is how they were treated as children. And I'm reading a book right now called Out of the Enchanted Forest, and I watched some other videos today on YouTube, which was about, a child has a natural fight or flight response. If as a child you're punished for protecting yourself, or you're invalidated or belittled, or invalidated or punished for having feelings or having thoughts or ideas, or your parents are constantly challenging you or putting you down, you lose your sense of self. You start to get anxious around people because you don't know when the next shoe is going to drop. That's how a lot of people get their social anxiety, because their parents were so unpredictable. Or they get depressed because they're told they're nobody, and they start believing it. Like, it's all childhood stuff of what happened to people. And so they have to start learning how to validate their own experience, validate their own feelings, and start loving themselves. And that's the whole key when you say that these people need love. They need help learning how to love themselves, because their ability to love themselves was taken from them by their parents. and it causes them a lot. It causes them to be very, very, very poor partners in relationship. They are not made for good relationships. The only people that will get into relationships with those people are other wounded people. Nobody else will want to sign up for the job. The other thing that happens is that when people aren't allowed to develop their sense of self, they start fawning. They start seeing, like, how can I get your approval? Because their own sense of self was invalidated. And a lot of us were raised like that, really. Like, I grew up in the 60s when children were told they were, you should be seen but not heard. And parents didn't really know all this about dealing with kids' feelings. And so one thing that I've had to work on is to trust my feelings and trust my needs. And that my feelings tell me things. And how do I feel about this? What's my experience of this? A lot of people don't even really know that. They don't even know how they feel because they had to bury their feelings so long ago. There's a guy that I watched that was really good. Marshall someone, Healthy Codependent or something on YouTube. He has some really, really deep videos that are really good for people who are dealing with codependency. People pleasing, fawning, those people are not good in relationship either because they rely on you for their self-esteem. They don't have a sense of self. When I say a sense of self, it's like knowing what you like, knowing your preferences, knowing your wants, your needs, your desires, your feelings, your thoughts, your beliefs, and being able to share them and being able to say no to people. See, people that are codependent or fawning or people pleasers or nice guys, they don't tell you no because, one, they were never allowed to have an opinion. They were punished for it. So they've had to annihilate that part of themselves. And they only, they get their sense of love and approval from your approval. So they always want to look to you for approval. So it's a big burden. They don't have a sense of self. They don't know what they like. They don't know what they want. They don't know how to comfort themselves. See, like children, healthy children, they learn resilience. Like, okay, I can't always get what I want. Like Johnny doesn't want to play with me. So here's an example. Okay, here's an example. Little kids on the playground. This comes up all the time. Little John, say I take little Johnny to the playground and he's playing, and then, he's playing tractors he's playing with a bunch of kids, and then little Marcus doesn't want to play with him. And Johnny's super sad. Mommy, Marcus doesn't want to play with me. And then if a parent's like, who gives a shit what you want, or just don't make such a big fuss, or don't be a crybaby, stop complaining. Those are all really harmful things to a child who's eventually going to stop even feeling anything. The ideal response to the child is, oh, Johnny, I'm so sorry. He doesn't want to play with you. You look so sad. Immediately the child is like happy. He feels heard. And then they usually go, well, yeah, I'll go play with Sally instead. They always come up with their own answers like that. So this is the same thing you can do as an adult. If someone stands you up that you want to go on a date with, comfort yourself like that. Comfort yourself the way that you would comfort a little child. Comfort your own inner child. That's how you can start loving yourself, you guys. So, like, let's say that, you ask out this woman, or say I'm waiting for some guy to call me. Or say you're interested in a woman and she blows you off, or I'm interested in a guy who blows me off. I can say to myself, oh, Sharzad, Sally blew you off. Oh, yeah, I can tell you're so sad. It's okay to be sad. Oh, you really wanted Sally to call you. You really wanted to be her friend. Yeah, so that's how you comfort yourself, by acknowledging your feelings. And then you just feel better. And then you're like, yeah, I'll just find a different friend. So that's how you can start talking to yourself by loving yourself, rather than, I shouldn't feel this way. How can I get Sally to call me? Why didn't Sally call me? What am I going to say to Sally? I'm such a bad person for feeling this way, or not even knowing why I feel this way. So that's what we want to start doing. We want to start being kind to ourselves. If you don't have a mental health therapist, you can read books about early family systems. You can do meditation. You can exercise. You can start being compassionate to yourself. Just honor your feelings and comfort yourself when you're upset, the way that you would if it was a little child. And when I used to coach people and do inner child healing, I would take them back to like a time when they had the same feeling that was really bothering them now. And I would ask them to comfort that little child, and often they couldn't. So then I would have them say, what if you saw a child in a similar situation as you were in? How would you comfort that child? And they always knew how. You always know how to comfort someone else. And then I'm like, okay, now say that same thing to yourself. Learn how to comfort yourself. That's like a big thing I'm going to leave you guys with. That's so powerful, because I actually don't ever do that. And I did it today on something. I comforted myself on something and I just felt so loved. So when you say everyone deserves to be loved, we all deserve to be loved by ourselves, first and foremost. And that's where a lot of people don't want to do it. They're like, I don't want to love myself. It's your job to love me. And a lot of people start mistaking intimacy for connection or parental love. They're looking for a partner to be their parent, rather than a partner who has expectations and that has mutuality and equal power. A lot of people want to outsource their inner void to someone else. Like, I don't know how to comfort myself. You do it for me. That's a huge turnoff to someone who's emotionally healthy. Like, I don't want to comfort you where you're unable to do it yourself. I don't want you to burden me with your mental health and with your void, you know? So, just these little things, I think, can make a huge difference. Now, if you would leave in the comments anything you want, but also if you have any ideas where people who actually want therapy can go, that's not super expensive. Because there could be people who want therapy and they don't know where to go. And I don't do the free coaching anymore because people didn't fucking appreciate it. They would do like one session or they would blow it off and they didn't even thank me. Like, they weren't very grateful. So I'm like, fuck that. I don't want to do that anymore. Plus, I don't want my YouTube channel to be tainted by trying to get business. And I already have my other income sources. So this channel, I got rid of putting my Treasure Within coaching in the description because I didn't want to make this channel about, oh, hire me as a coach, because then I can't say certain things like don't date people with mental illness. Like, I just want this to be a channel where I just share my ideas as I go through my own journey in my life. And so that's why I don't want to do it anymore. Yeah. So, but the thing that you do with your feelings, the somatic experiencing, is that say that you're jealous about something or sad about something. The somatic way of dealing with the feeling, again, is to feel the feeling in your body. Don't think about why it's there. You just feel it in your body. And I just walk people through it. Like, you don't have to push it away anymore. Like, people, you spend so many years just pushing this feeling away. And you don't have to push it away. It's okay that it's there. It's uncomfortable, but it won't hurt you. Just let it be there, and, ask them where they feel it in their body. Just let it be there, and they'll describe it. What does it feel like? What does it look like? It's a heavy box in my chest. It's a twirling spiral. It's a pressure on my chest. It's usually in the frontal area. And I'm like, okay, just let it spread out. Just let it spread out. Don't think about why it's there. This is a body exercise only. Then I have them go inside their body and feel it and go to that, say it feels like a heavy box. Okay, imagine the box, circle around the box. Then I have them go inside the box. And as soon as they go inside that painful feeling, it all releases, and they start getting lost in this pleasurable, euphoric, peaceful place inside of themselves. And then when they're done with the experience, they're like, oh my God, I just feel so happy. And that feeling is gone. That's how you deal with difficult feelings. That's how I got rid of my loneliness for good. That one took just like 5 seconds. It was this big pit in my dark pit. The first few times I did this, I was terrified of going inside like the heaviness in my heart, or that black pit in my belly. It felt like a huge void that would swallow me whole. And I was like, okay, God, I'm tired of crying over men. I'm tired of having my heart broken. If I'm swallowed up by my own void, let it be. I'm willing to take the risk. I was that desperate. And I went inside and it just released. And my loneliness was gone like that. I have not felt lonely once since. And I used to feel lonely all the freaking time. It's called somatic experiencing. It's a shamanic. Eckhart Tolle talks about it. John Wellwood. So those are things you guys can do. You can do somatic experiencing. Can do compassionate self-talk. You can get enough sleep, which is super important for mental health. You can get enough water, eat healthy foods, and move your body. Get some exercise every day. There's so many things people can do instead of holding everyone else hostage to your mental health issues. And don't tell me that you're too depressed to do it, because I've seen people say they're too depressed, but then they go and work all day. It's just a victim mentality. I'm not here. I'm not responsible. Here's one of my therapists. I'm not responsible for your problems. I'm not responsible for you. I am allowed to have what I need. I can care about others without taking responsibility for them. I am not responsible for other people. I can care about other people, but I'm not responsible for them.